Hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Jennifer Weaver, and on behalf of Advancing Evidence-Based Practice, we'd like to welcome you to today's webinar on Familias Unidas. Familias Unidas is a blueprint-certified Hispanic-specific preventive intervention shown to reduce and prevent substance use, sexually risky behaviors, and externalizing disorders among Hispanic adolescents. Familias Unidas addresses the needs of Hispanic families by incorporating cultural components in the prevention of behavioral health problems, and its efficacy has been demonstrated in 4 experimental trials. After today's presentation, participants will gain an understanding of substance use and sexually risky behaviors among Hispanic youth and be able to identify the central components of the Familias Unidas intervention. We're so happy to have with us today a whole team from Familias Unidas. Welcome Dr. Hilda Panton, Dr. Willie Prada, Dr. Yanine Estrada, and Maria Tapia. Willie, we'll now turn the time over to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Great. Thank you so much, Jen, and thank you, Peter, and thank you to all of you listening for joining us this afternoon or this morning, depending on what part of the country you're at. So we're very excited to be presenting today on Familias Unidas. As Jen mentioned, Maria Tapia is here with me, and she will be the co-presenter. Maria Tapia is a licensed clinical social worker, and she's the clinical trainer and clinical supervisor of Familias Unidas. And Yanine Estrada is here with me as well, and she'll be helping to answer questions at the end. But predominantly it'll be Maria and I presenting this morning. So I will be summarizing some of the research findings to date, and then Maria will be discussing.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Sorry about that. It looks like it didn't begin when I began it, so I'm going to go ahead and
Maria Tapia will.
Hi, Willie. Sorry, I'm going to introduce you again if that's okay. There was a delay in the beginning of the webinar.
Sure, Jen.
Okay, welcome everyone. Sorry about that little delay there. My name is Jennifer Weaver, and we'd like to welcome you to today's webinar on Familias Unidas. Familias Unidas is a blueprint-certified Hispanic-specific preventive intervention shown to reduce and prevent substance use, sexually risky behaviors, and externalizing disorders among Hispanic adolescents. Familias Unidas addresses the needs of Hispanic families by incorporating cultural components in the prevention of behavioral health problems, and its efficacy has been demonstrated in 4 experimental trials. After today's presentation, participants will gain an understanding of substance use and sexually risky behaviors among Hispanic youth and be able to identify the central components of the Familias Unidas intervention. Today we have with us a whole team from Familias Unidas. We'd like to welcome Dr. Hilda Panton, Dr. Willie Prada, Dr. Yanine Estrada, and Maria Tapia. Willie, thank you so much for being here. We'll turn the time over to you now. Thanks for your patience.
Great. Thank you so much, Jen. And thank you, Jen and Peter, for the invitation to present this morning. So as Jen mentioned, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon or this morning, depending on which part of the country you're at right now. Maria Tapia, who's a licensed clinical social worker and the clinical trainer and clinical supervisor of the Familias Unidas intervention, will be presenting on the clinical piece of the intervention, and I will be presenting on the research findings of the intervention. So with that said, I'd like to get started, and I'm going to go ahead and pause after certain parts of the presentation, and Maria will do the same, to make sure that you all have opportunity to answer questions as we go along, and then we'll each pause after our respective presentations for additional questions. So as Jen mentioned, and actually, okay, here we go. So as Jen mentioned, Familias Unidas is a Hispanic-specific preventive intervention for youth and their families. We aim to prevent and reduce problem behaviors by increasing family processes, including but not limited to parent-adolescent communication and parental monitoring of both peer and school activities. Familias Unidas is a 12-session preventive intervention that's delivered predominantly through family-centered multi-parent groups of about 12 to 15 parents that really place the parent in the change agent role of the family, and also through 4 individual family visits where the parents have an opportunity to practice and enact some of the skills that they learned in the prior group sessions through role play and some didactic presentations with their adolescents at home. So Familias Unidas over the past 15 years has really evolved, where we started with very much a community engaged process where we went to different key stakeholders and we formed a number of focus groups with parents, with adolescents, with school counselors, with Miami-Dade County school administrators to really begin to form and develop the intervention. So after that initial focus group, then we developed the intervention from some of that qualitative and quantitative data that we collected. We completed a number of efficacy trials. As of today, we've completed 3 randomized clinical trials of the intervention, and you'll hear me present some of those results today. In addition to that, we have 3 additional trials going on, including 1 effectiveness trial of the intervention, which is currently being delivered here in Miami-Dade County in approximately 24 middle schools, which represents about half of the middle schools. We also have some studies in the dissemination and implementation phase. For example, our group right now is doing really it's a hybrid effectiveness implementation trial in Guayaquil, Ecuador. So very briefly, and I know that many of you on the call are probably very familiar with, if not the term eco-developmental theory, you're familiar with the social ecological models, which really builds on Bronfenbrenner's work on the social ecology. And in this figure, you see the adolescent in the middle, and you see all of the social and contextual influences of adolescence, which are really targeted in Familias Unidas from those systems that are most distal to the adolescent, such as issues of cultural mismatch and acculturation, which we encounter a lot in working with Hispanic youth and their families, where the parents tend not to acculturate, at least very quickly, to the American culture, and on the other hand, the youth tend to acculturate very quickly to the American culture. So this cultural mismatch or gap in acculturation really creates a problem, and I'm sorry, I keep on getting this pop-up. So these issues of acculturation really creates problems in family functioning. So we're really a disruption in the family microsystem that we really intervene, as you'll hear Maria talking about in a little bit during her presentation. So this figure is really just to make everyone aware that we target from the macro systemic processes to those microsystemic processes with an emphasis on family, school, and the peer worlds. So very briefly, I didn't want to take too much time because I really wanted to give Maria most of the time to really present the nuts and bolts of the intervention, and so that you can really have an opportunity to see what happens during each of the intervention sessions. But briefly, I did want to present a couple of the results that we have seen as we've progressed with the efficacy trials in the intervention. This here is one of our published articles on the effects of Familias Unidas on an indicated sample of Hispanic adolescents that were recruited both from the Miami-Dade Department of Juvenile Services and also from opportunity or alternative schools within the Miami-Dade County public school system. This particular article was published in Pediatric and Adolescent Medicine, now known as JAMA Pediatrics. So I really just wanted to give you a brief snapshot of the participant flow for this particular study. We recruited 446 adolescents and their parents, which were screened, and approximately 80% of those that were approached were enrolled. And we randomized 242 Hispanic adolescents and their families into one of 2 intervention conditions, Familias Unidas or community practice. So because a significant proportion of these adolescents were recruited from the juvenile justice system, they were highly encouraged by the juvenile justice system and the courts to attend the program or to attend the control condition. So they were very much encouraged to enroll in this particular study. The community practice or standard of care in this particular study was a very active condition, with individuals receiving evidence-based interventions, including cognitive behavior therapy, and other types of family therapy modalities, including but not limited to MST and MDFT, so multisystemic therapy. Here you see our 6-month and 12-month retention rates. We were able to approximately retain a little over 90% of the sample through our 12-month follow-up assessment. Briefly, here you see some of the results from some of the analyses comparing Familias Unidas to this highly active community control condition. And you see the steep rate of decline in symptoms of alcohol dependence for adolescents randomized to the Familias Unidas intervention condition relative to those in the control condition. I'd like to pause for a second to see if there's any questions thus far.
No questions yet. Thank
Great.
you.
Hearing none, I'll continue. Great. Thank you, Jen. Just want to briefly highlight one or two other findings. So in addition to our impact on substance use, including symptoms of drug dependence, we've also had an impact on a number of sexual risk behaviors across multiple studies. This is one that I'd like to highlight. So this is the proportion of individuals that had sex while under the influence of drugs or alcohol in the past 90 days. And you see essentially in the Familias Unidas intervention, we started off at approximately 12 or 13%, and those levels remained relatively flat over the 1-year follow-up, where in the control condition, where we started at a very similar rate, we increased significantly over time to approximately 35% of the youth in the control condition reporting having had sex while under the influence of alcohol or drugs. A consistent pattern that we've seen in all of our completed efficacy trials is that the effects of condition on the outcomes, on multiple of the outcomes, have been explained or at least partially explained. Some of the improvements that we've seen in some of the family functioning processes that we target in the intervention and that we measure in our subsequent assessments. For example, parent-adolescent communication is one, and there are others, including positive parenting, parental involvement, and parental monitoring of peers. But in front of you, you see some of the improvements that we've seen in parent-adolescent communication specifically for this study, where we see that adolescents randomized to the experimental condition Familias Unidas had higher rates of increase in parent-adolescent communication relative to the control group. And what we see in this study and some of in our other studies is that the changes in family functioning processes generally happen short-term. In other words, during the course of the intervention from 0 to 6 months, then we see a leveling off of these intervention effects. But after the 6 and the 12 months is when we start seeing the effects on the outcomes themselves. So we change the mediator or mechanism of action first, and those increases in these family functioning processes then have an impact on the later behaviors. Very briefly, to an effectiveness trial that's currently ongoing in approximately half the middle schools in Miami-Dade County. This is where we trained school counselors to deliver our intervention program. I'll talk a little bit about some of the results to date. Data collection are actually still ongoing. So I'll really just present right now a very brief schematic of the study design. So we randomized and assessed 740 Hispanic youth and their parents, and we randomized them into one of two conditions, the Familias Unidas or a community control. I should say that the community control condition here was the standard of care delivered by the Miami-Dade County Public School Systems in terms of their HIV sexual education. Thus far, we've completed our 6-month and our 18-month follow-up assessments, and you see our retention rates there in the figure. We're currently in the middle of our 30-month post-baseline assessment. Currently, actually, we have 85. We actually got some more families, so this doesn't represent the additional families we just assessed earlier this week. So we're about to 85% retention through our 30-month post-baseline assessment. As I mentioned earlier, we train school counselors and school social workers to deliver the Familias Unidas intervention. We actually trained and supervised approximately 40 school counselors, and Maria can talk a little bit more of the details on the training when she presents. But basically what I wanted to get across in this one slide was that in a relatively short amount of time, specifically 4 days of training in the intervention that included a number of different types of training techniques, including reading the intervention manual, including some didactic presentations from Maria, including role plays within the group participants or the trainees themselves, and watching video clips from the intervention. With a relatively short amount of training, the interventionists or the school counselors did a very good job in terms of the fidelity to the intervention. So to give you an idea, when Maria and some of the other staff that we have had here at the University of Miami delivered this program for 6, 7, 8 years, including Maria, who has been doing this for about 15 years, her average fidelity ratings are approximately 4.8 to 4.9. So really a 4.1 for someone who's received 4 days of training and really their first time delivering this group, it was something that we were very, very happy with. In terms of engagement rates and the mean number of sessions attended, here you see what it looks like. As some of you know, there's significant challenges oftentimes in engaging and retaining families into parenting interventions. It's really a consistent challenge in the literature. Our group has done better than a lot of the other groups, with approximately 80% of the families engaged. And again, keep in mind that these are school counselors who have really only delivered this program. We often find that the engagement rules and the facilitators deliver the intervention more and more. They get more comfortable. But nonetheless, 80% is really pretty good for first-timers delivering the intervention. And the mean number of sessions attended is about 6.5. And this includes, the 6.5 includes the 20% who did not engage. If I exclude the 20% of the individuals who did not engage, the mean number of sessions attended almost increases to about 9. So really, the message here is once we can get the family engaged, and Maria's going to speak a little bit about some of the engagement and retention strategies that we use during the course of the intervention, we are able to retain a significant proportion of the families in the intervention. Here you see in our effectiveness trial, I did say that we completed our 6-month follow-up assessment. And again, you sort of see parent-adolescent communication changes short-term during the course of the intervention, which are later sustained but do not continue to increase. And then, as I said earlier, those tend to drive our intervention effects. Before I talk about one last study, before I turn it to Maria, I want to pause just one more time before doing that, see if there's any questions at this point.
Yes, we do have one. Paul would like to know, is this a prevention intervention or a treatment intervention? And he says the answer will, drives the type of funds used to support intervention and the type of staff who delivers it.
Yes, so that's a great question, and it's a preventive intervention that has been done across the spectrum of risk, including a universal sample with adolescents who do not really have any risk, a universal population. We have also done the study, which I didn't present the findings, with a selected sample of adolescents, so adolescents who have exhibited some type of risk. So for example, in the study, we screened adolescents who had some conduct problems, and we were very successful. And in the study, as I just presented, it was as an indicated sample of adolescents. So adolescents who were already exhibiting quite amount of risk, including already demonstrating the behavior, given that approximately 50% of the adolescents were already using drugs. So in this latter study that I presented, it was really an indicated sample, much like the ones that we would see in a treatment sample. In fact, the psychopathology was quite high, and one very consistent with what we would see in a clinical sample. Although, as I said, we have done it across the spectrum.
And are the sessions held in Spanish or in English? Richard would like to know.
Yeah, great, sure. So the groups are delivered in Spanish. And then, so the multi-parent groups are delivered in Spanish, And then the family sessions, given that the adolescent participates and the adolescent oftentimes feels more comfortable speaking in English and the parent feels a bit more comfortable speaking in Spanish oftentimes, we deliver those in both languages. And the facilitator will generally go back and forth and a little bit of Spanglish as well.
Thanks, Willie. I think that's all we've got for now.
So, sure, great, thank you. So just in the last couple of slides here before I turn it over to Maria, we did want to also say that we currently have some funding. Actually, this is awarded to Yanin to take this particular intervention, this face-to-face intervention, and adapt it for delivery through the internet, either through a computer or a tablet or smartphones. As many folks on the call are probably aware, Hispanics is one of the demographic groups. In fact, the demographic groups with the largest proportion using smartphones. So we've been working over the past year to really deliver an internet-based adaptation, and we're currently on the field with a major randomized clinical trial funded by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So in this internet-based adaptation, there are really two major components that drive the intervention. The first are telenovelas or soap operas that are being used as induction videos to introduce each of the topics of the intervention group session. So for example, we have groups on communication, groups on parental monitoring, a group on substance use and communication around substance use. So we have this telenovela that follows these families over the course of 8 episodes and introduces each of these 8 topics in a very culturally syntonic manner, and in a manner that, as you'll see in a second, that's really very engaging to the parents watching these videos at home. So for those of you who know Hispanic or Latino telenovelas or even soap operas in general, they tend to be very dramatic. Well, this is no exception. They are very dramatic, and they finish off with a cliffhanger, and it's really used as a mechanism to engage the participant to come back and watch the subsequent sessions. The other major component of this particular intervention, of this internet-based adaptation, is interactive exercises. So because the intervention, as you hear from Maria, really tries to make this as participatory as possible, it really places the parents in the group as the leaders of the group, and really the school counselor or the facilitator is really there to facilitate that process, but really to elicit the responses and the knowledge from the participants themselves. We really wanted to mimic the same process by having the families at home interact with the screen, and after they watch the telenovela, Maria, through a talk show format, interacts with real parents that we videotaped following a group, and then the parents have an opportunity, the parents at home have an opportunity to interact. And then we use the responses of those exercises to, in some sort of way, personalize the family visits that we're going to be delivering online through Skype. It's not really Skype. Actually, we're using VZ, which is a little more private and secure than Skype, but it's very similar to Skype. So I just wanted to briefly just play a 1.5 minute video clip so you can see just what the internet-based adaptation looks like, and really just to give you a very small flavor.
Darwin. Gabriela, please. Español. Tenemos que hablar. Siempre escoges los peores momentos. Cojo. Son los únicos chances que tengo. Siempre estás corriendo o cansado. Cuando está bien, dime qué te pasa. No es mí. Es Darwin. Parece que... Gabriela, perdón, hija, pero de verdad estoy muerta. Mañana tengo que llevar a doña Silvia al radiólogo súper temprano. Hablamos en otra ocasión, ¿ok?
¿Qué les ha parecido el episodio 2 de la telenovela sobre la comunicación familiar y la conexión entre padres e hijos? Víctor, usted dijo algo la semana pasada de la conexión.
Sí, yo creo que la conexión entre los padres e hijos es importantísima, pero la conexión entre los padres, la comunicación entre los padres, estar en sintonía, estar en el mismo, ir en el mismo camino de los padres es mucho más importante. Por otro lado, yo creo que nos ayuda mucho el ejemplo que los padres le damos a los hijos. Las palabras mueven, los ejemplos arrastran.
Perfecto. Comunicarnos efectivamente es importante. ¿Y cómo luce separar?
So there you all see an idea. The first part was the soap opera, the telenovela, and then the second was the mock group that was delivered in a mock group format, and then after that the families at home would see the interactive exercises or activities that I described earlier, where they can really interact and answer some questions based on what they've seen and based on what they've heard during the group. So I want to take another second before I finish my part of the presentation, the last couple slides.
No questions at this time.
Great, Jen. And thank you, Jen. I just want to make sure, were you able to hear, was everybody able to hear in addition to watching the video? Or was the sound quality poor?
In the beginning we couldn't hear, but then it picked up fine. But we had the subtitles, so it was great.
Then it picked up. So, okay, great. So now I know that I have to get close to the mic when. Okay, great. So very, very briefly, we've conducted a series of focus groups when we initially developed the intervention. And overall, we found the parents really enjoyed both the telenovela and the group format of the activities. So as I said earlier, now we're in the process of conducting a large-scale randomized clinical trial. Here you see some of the attendance rates of approximately 30 families that participated in the pilot phase of this study. And you can see that the engagement rates and the proportion of individuals, of families that completed both the group and the family visits was high, approximately 80% across all of these different categories. So I really just sort of want to finish with this one slide that really just sort of summarizes some of the outcomes that we've seen in the Familias Unidas intervention, where we have that Familias Unidas has had an impact not only on drug use and risky sexual behaviors, which have been to date the primary outcomes of the intervention, but we have also had an impact on other externalizing and internalizing disorders that we haven't necessarily directed impacted on the intervention, including but not limited to depressive symptoms, where we have shown a significant decrease over the control condition, and we have also seen increases in physical activity. We actually currently have a study funded right now by the National Institute of Minority Health and Health Disparities to begin to adapt this particular intervention for obesity prevention as well. So I'd like to just finish off with this one slide. This was a very recent a quote from a father who participated in one of our focus groups, where he says, as you can see, the program really had an impact on him. And he says, I am no longer the same person. Every day I am different in the sense that in the communication with my children and the way I treat them, well, it has changed. I have truly changed. I have changed. It has helped me. It has helped me as a person. I have, like we say, machismo. We have those little things, we men, but honestly, I am another person. So I'd like to turn it over to Maria Tapia right now, and just like to once again thank Jen and Peter, and thank all of you for listening to this first part of the presentation. Now you're going to hear the most interesting part. You'll hear Maria, really, who's probably a lot more dynamic than I am and engaging, and you'll hear really her talking about the nuts and bolts of this intervention. And finally, I'd like to just acknowledge all of the families that have participated in these studies over the years, including the staff and the National Institute of Drug Abuse and some of the other ones that I've already acknowledged during my presentation. So thank you all very much, and I look forward to answering some more questions later on.
Thank you all for participating in this webinar. And I'd like to start by talking about how does Familias Unidas operate. Like Willie mentioned a little bit before about the eco-developmental theory, the eco-developmental theory is a conceptual model that describes the interconnections among the various sources of risk and protections in adolescents' life. We also aim to improve family functioning, and we engage parents through many activities, including 2 group sessions, 4 family sessions, and some homework activities. Here we have the contextual model that exemplifies how Familias Unidas can intervene at the 4 systemic levels, and some of the strategies that we use to impact risk and protection in the adolescent world. For example, you know, we have the microsystem with all the cultural influences, the dominant culture that some of the Hispanic parents are, you know, living, or all the Hispanic parents are living in the American society. And sometimes there is conflict with, you know, understanding some of the stuff that happen in the culture. And you very well know that children and adolescents especially, they are acculturate at a much faster rate than parents. And sometimes parents can interpret that as being deviant when they want to do things, you know, outside of what is normal for the culture. We also, in the ecosystem, do enhance some of the parents' social support. We challenge some of the parental beliefs and attitudes, and we build parental skills. In the mesosystem, which is the most proximal, is very proximal to the adolescent world, we have the parent with the interaction with the school, and we have the parent peers, as well as the, you know, microsystem, which is the most proximal system that affects the adolescent, and we have the family as the central piece, and there we work with the family to improve communication, to improve connection, increase parental support for the adolescent. And we do, you know, all of these through many activities that we're going to be discussing. So what can Familias Unidas achieve? You know, the most important, we focus on the most important worlds for the adolescents, and those are the family world, the peer world, and the school world. And how do we impact those worlds with the intervention? What can we achieve? For example, in the family world, we don't only teach, because we don't use the teaching strategies, we empower the parents to learn and practice new skills for effective communication, not only with their own kids, but also, you know, with the extended relatives, family, and friends. We also talk about the skills for warm and nurturing relationships. How can parents develop that in their own families, and especially with their own children, and how they apply effective behavior management techniques and new skills when they, you know, trying to do the disciplinary actions with their children. We also heighten parental awareness of the risk in the adolescent's life. Sometimes parents don't realize that all the kids are at risk because of the environment, because of the, you know, the developmental trajectory. And we also increase parents' sense of responsibility and perceive control over the youth. Because sometimes, you know, parents come with, you know, the idea that there is nothing I can do. I mean, he's growing up, he's developing his own world, he's in his own, you know, with his own friends, and they think that they don't have any control. And especially when it comes to the peer world. What can we do in the peer world? Well, we strengthen a relationship between parents and adolescent peers. We strengthen a relationship between parents and peers' parents. Sometimes parents feel like, you know, when they take the kids to the elementary school and you ask them, do you know your kids' friends? Do you know the parents' friends? They usually tell you yes. I know these other moms. But when the kids start to, you know, go to middle school or high school, usually you hear parents not, you know, getting very much involved in their peers, in their children's peers' life. They don't know who are the peers that they're hanging around. They don't know the parents of those peers. So we encourage parents to make those prosocial connections, not only with the peer parents, but also within their own kids' friends, to encourage them to participate in activities where they're going to be associated with more prosocial peers. And we also provide parents with the skills to monitoring adolescents' activities. In the family world, we're strengthening collaborations between parents and schools. Parents learn how to collaborate with the school personnel. Usually immigrant parents or Hispanic parents don't feel like they have anything to say when it comes to, you know, a system like the school system. They feel like, you know, this is pretty much so huge to intervene that they don't have any say in what's happening in the schools. So by, you know, collaborating with the school system and having and encouraging the parents to really visit the schools and make appointments, we create that link. And also by doing this, the parents start to feel like they are in a leadership position, that they can be more effective in monitoring by putting them in leadership positions. So how do we accomplish all these goals? Basically, we engage and motivate parents. We instill hope. Sometimes, you know, they come like, you know, there is nothing I can do attitude, take my kid and fix it. We place them in positions of leadership. We're strengthening the parental collaboration with the different adolescents' worlds. We create the support network so they feel like they are not isolated, that they have other parents that are going through similar, you know, through the similar challenges of raising adolescents. We also give them effectively deal with drugs. Sometimes parents come to the groups and they have no idea about some of these drugs or the paraphernalia associated, or some of the adolescent is exhibiting that they don't understand what's going on. And definitely at the end, what we're trying to do is to restructure these maladaptive interactions that parents have with family, schools, and peers. And also solidify the interactions that are going well, because we highlight a lot of the strengths that the family is doing as well. So what is the role of the facilitators? Very important. Facilitators will acquire skills, skills that will facilitate the joining techniques, the group processes that happens in groups. Also, the facilitator will learn participatory learning skills that will allow them to incorporate and empower the parents. They're also going to restructure these family relationships and empower parents to do for the families rather than, you know, rather than us doing the work for them. The parents are also going to be exposed to some content that is going to be delivered in a very psychosocial manner. The facilitator also going to be trained with the proper implementation and adherence by receiving the training, by receiving ongoing supervision weekly during the time that the sessions are delivered. The facilitator is going to adhere to a manualized model that we have. We're going to be videotaping the sessions to provide them with clinical feedback when necessary. And they, in general, are going to receive clinical support and supervision so they don't walk this alone. So what are some of the aspects? And before we go into this, are there any questions?
Yes, we do have one. actually echoes a conversation I had with a teacher just last week in Las Vegas. He says, if schools cannot spare any school staff to implement this intervention, can external providers deliver the intervention either in the school or in the community?
Yes, we have one session that is devoted to the school, and at times we have invited counselors to come for an hour to talk about, you know, the school system and what are some of the ways that parents can contribute to the school system and some of the resources that the school system have. You know, a lot of parents aren't aware that most of the school systems have tutoring, you know, after school, or they have certain clubs or sports that are available. But if the parents don't go to school, they're not going to find out. So, you know, in our school session, we try to bring a counselor to the session for an hour. And you're surprised how many counselors and principals will be willing to do this in order to, you know, have better attendance or have better school retention and eliminate or sort of decrease the dropout rate. So if you engage school counselors or even principals into this, they, you know, for the most part, we've been doing this for 15 years. For the most part, we always had a counselor that we established a relationship during our recruitment of students and families that, you know, is willing to come, for an hour. And, you know, we prepare the parents for this activity in the first part of the group because they realize that, you know, a school is a friend. A school is a system that is friendly if we know how to communicate properly, how to engage them properly, and how to be assertive about engaging the school system. So in the first half hour of the group, we prepare the parents to feel empowered to do this in a very supportive process. We even, you know, sometimes give parents flowers or a basket to give to the counselor as a token of our appreciation for that person to spend, you know, half an hour with us. So is that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. So what are some of the intervention activities that we do in Familias Unidas? Like I said before, we had group sessions, we have family visits, we had the parent and school personnel meeting that I was just referring to. We have family supervised activities that we encourage the parents to do. And we assign parents with homework activities to do at home. And, you know, all these activities, of course, build upon each other to achieve the goals of the intervention. The group sessions, you know, weekly parent groups with facilitators to discuss ways to become involved in the adolescent's life. That is important. The parental empowerment process of Familias Unidas builds over the course of the intervention. So, you know, throughout all our activities, like, you know, creating the social support, the parental investment, the parents acquiring new skills, and developing the parental self-efficacy, those are empowerment activities or skills that parents start to acquire in every single session. These objectives are mainly accomplished by providing a context for parent participation. We also do role plays. We never assign, for example, a homework without doing a role play in the session where, you know, 1, 2, 3 parents, and the participatory learning. And I'm going to be talking about a little bit more specifics about all these objectives and activities. Also have the family visits that, you know, in the family visits we give parents an opportunity to practice the skills they learn in the groups with their own families. And what are some of the objectives of these family visits? To restructure family interactions in the adolescent's world, to increase the parental and child communication, to foster more nurturing, supportive relationships, and also develop effective parental monitoring of the adolescent in the context of love and support. You know, sometimes we cannot talk about discipline if we don't talk about these other components, so parents start to build one upon the other. And these objectives are accomplished by restructuring these family interactions, by the new skills and knowledge that parents acquire, and they learn in the groups, and also they have an opportunity to test in their own families. We also have the parent and school personnel meetings that we encourage. Sometimes we really encourage parents to go to school and make appointments or call the schools and meet with the counselors and meet with the teacher to establish these strong parent and school collaborations and increase the parental involvement in the school. And how do we accomplish this? By increasing parental awareness of all the school services, whether it's us, giving the information or inviting a school counselor, and restructuring this relationship between parents and counselors and parents and teachers, and even parents and administrators in the school system. In the family supervised activities, we encourage parents to meet the child's peers, and not only the child's peers, but also have activities to invite the child's peers' parents to whatever activities that they do, to start establishing this positive relationship with the peers' parents, to monitor one another, to support one another, and supervising all the adolescent activities. We, in essence, is creating a national support network that will continue beyond the intervention. We also, like I mentioned before, family homework assignments are given in some groups, where we provide the parents with the opportunity to practice the skills that they develop during the group set and the family visits, with the objective for increase the parental involvement, practice the skills that they learn in the groups, develop the self-efficacy, and these objectives are accomplished by parents practicing with their own families and also with their adolescents in a group experience. So what are some of the intervention strategies? And these are just some of them, the most important ones, that facilitators will learn. They will learn to join and engage for families that are traditionally very hard to engage. These clinical techniques are a blend of a cognitive change and strategies, of better skill training, and the empowerment process. We limit the amount of teaching of psychosocial components that we do. So we use some of these strategies to empower the facilitators to deliver the intervention. We also have strategies to build cohesive group environments for the participatory learning nature of our intervention. The facilitators learn how to differentiate process and content that sometimes is very difficult for clinicians to pay attention to. They also learn strategies for parental skill development, the skill transfer from parent to adolescent, and restructuring the maladaptive interactions that may or may occur in all the adolescent worlds. So, what are some of the joining and engagement strategies? Research has consistently shown that joining and engagement is one of the most important strategies to engage individuals and families. And how do we do that? During the training, we role play different ways that facilitators can develop these strategies to effectively engage families that are traditionally hard to engage because they are overwhelmed, they have 2 jobs at times. Why do we do that? We do that in the training of the Familias Unidas. And, during the phase of the Familias Unidas, and I will say not only during the beginning, but throughout the intervention, the facilitator must join with the family to keep the family engaged and to keep the family motivated to participate. And, to summarize it, joining begins with the first contact that the family has, the facilitator has with the family. So I'm going to show you a clip of how this can, how can the joining be achieved.
sé si será prudente hablar o usted todo lo que yo he visto, lo que pasa por la televisión, pero todo lo que pasa por la televisión es lo que pasa. Y entonces yo le digo a él que se cuide de todo esto. Que hay hombres mayores para un niño de 14 años. Se abusan. Ajá. Miren, yo se va a la escuela, si yo no puedo salir afuera porque está empujado, yo estoy por la ventana hasta que se ponga. Porque él sale de la mañana a las 6:20 para las 7 y este tiempo ahora está oscuro todavía. Entonces yo no me quito la ventana o bajo hasta abajo hasta que no se monta la luz. Porque yo no permito dejarlo allá afuera. Tiene miedo que algo le pase. Ay, yo quiero verlo mañanita a la puerta. Porque está algo frío. Sí, porque es que miren cómo se encuentran los niños. Por un lado la droga, por el otro lado la seguridad. Sí. Entonces fíjate, este programa, ¿qué es lo que le puede dar? Con respecto a su preocupación por la droga, tenemos uno de las sesiones de grupo de padres, que es casi al final. Una de las últimas, vamos a hablar de las drogas en general. Yo sé que usted sabe mucho bien. Usted ya veo como una mujer que se ha empapado y quiere saber. Pero le vamos a enseñar todavía más. Le vamos a hablar de estadística. Le vamos a enseñar la droga para que usted la vea. Para que si usted la reconozca, si usted la ve en algún lado. Le vamos a dar todas esas herramientas y después la vamos a ayudar a que usted hable con orden y le diga, mira, esto es así, esto te pasa así, yo quiero que llegamos a este acuerdo, quiero que tú te comprometas conmigo, para que usted proteja a otras y otras con respecto a la seguridad de otras. Pienso que lo podemos trabajar ya sea a través del área de la comunicación, que vamos a trabajar muchísimo en la comunicación y vamos a trabajar en el mundo de los amigos de otras y también vamos a trabajar en el mundo del colegio. Esos son tres, si usted mantiene una buena comunicación con otras, usted sabe quiénes son los amigos de otras y al mismo tiempo usted está conectada con el colegio, usted va a tratar, como diríamos en béisbol, de cubrir todas las bases.
So here you can see how the facilitator listens to the mom, and she's talking about different things. She's even talking about abducting kids, and I guess that is her own fear from her country of origin that usually doesn't happen a lot in the US. Of course it can happen. So she doesn't dispute that with mom at all. She just listens and try to weave in all the Familias Unidas activities into what is most relevant to this mom in order to engage her into the intervention. Do we have any questions so far?
No, not right now. Thank you.
Hello? Okay, good. So, here the joining involves a working alliance with all family members by, accepting the family's frame, like you just saw in the video, respecting, what the mom is saying, earning their trust, generating hope. Here you're going to learn, all of these activities by being flexible. I mean, sometimes we have to work late because, families are working. Only may have, an 8 o'clock appointment to come for the family visit. We do a lot of reflecting back, being genuine is very important. We validate their concern. You just saw in the video how the facilitator validated mom experiences with her son. So another technique that we use frequently is building cohesive groups, because we deliver this intervention in a group format for 8 sessions. And group cohesion refers to, group connectedness, working together towards a common goal. Constructive engagement around common things that all parents will present, like, we are all here to protect our kids, for example. And, we try for parents to open and share personal stuff that will be relevant to all the families so they don't feel so isolated. And group cohesion is accomplished by, punctuating commonalities among the group members, encouraging direct group members-to-member exchanges, member-to-members, empathy and validation of one another. And, sometimes the facilitator had to block negative interactions between group members. And, we teach all of that in our training. How do we do that? How do we keep, the cohesion of the group and minimize the negativity that may or may not occur I'm sorry for the pop-up that comes often. I had no idea what that is. So here we're going to see a clip of encouraging member-to-member interactions.
Ahora vamos a ver las dos que si nos ponemos de acuerdo para ver que se equilibró uno con más.
Parte de este grupo también que ustedes se apoyen como padres.
Sí.
Y entonces, pues, en algún momento intercambiar teléfono y todo, y ustedes no lo han conocido decirle, mira, tu hijo allá estaba con permiso.
Así le estoy diciendo yo a ella ahora para ver. Como se decía en los países de nosotros, cuando llegue a la casa yo estoy.
You know, so here you see the parents supporting one another, and the facilitator encourage member-to-member exchanges and interaction, and even, you know, exchanging telephone numbers to supervise the kids. Another technique that we employ is as a participatory learning, which is the problem-posing participatory learning is an important strategy of Familias Unidas that has been adapted from the Paulo Freire approach used with marginalized population in the early 80s in Brazil. And this particular technique, parents learn through dialogue rather than instruction. Rather than teach parents, they learn from, you know, talking to one another through the problem-posing questions that we do, and they are open for discussions. And this put parents in a key role or learning process, and we elicit responses from the parents rather than just simply teach, because you know you're gonna lose people when you simply teach something. If they feel they're part of the discussion and they own it, it can be a much more powerful tool for the parents to feel supported and to learn a new skill. Here, we're going to have another example of the participatory nature of our intervention.
Familia, cariño y comunicación. A veces el cariño, el amor, lo que sentimos los padres hacia nuestros hijos, a veces no se lo demostramos. Entonces, esa palabra cariño es amor también, porque nosotros lo queremos, pero al momento de casos, estamos que nos duele lo que ellos hicieron, pero no lo hablamos antes. No le dijimos, hijo, yo te quiero mucho. Pero ellos piensan que nosotros no lo queremos. Lo que dice María es muy importante, porque ella está diciendo lo mismo que hasta ahora todos han dicho, que el cariño, conectarse con los hijos a través del cariño, del amor, funciona como protección. Es lo que ustedes pueden hacer para proteger a sus hijos, pero ella no se queda solamente en el cariño, sino que dice, si no se lo comunico de una manera que él lo pueda entender, yo me puedo estar muriendo del amor, como ella dice. Si le hablo a mi hijo duro, le insulto cada vez que hace algo malo, yo por dentro siento el amor, pero él no lo recibe. Así que todo parece que ya estamos llegando al punto de estar de acuerdo de que el cariño es importante, pero no basta solamente el cariño. Hay que hacer un paso adicional como padre y es comunicarlo de una manera que ellos lo vayan a entender.
So in this example, the answer came from the parent. We had, you know, in a script that we needed to say, but actually the answer came from the parents themselves, and we, you know, made it so participatory that everybody felt like, you know, it was their own idea. So in parent skill development, parent skills include effective communication, especially about important topics like drugs, alcohol and sex, parental support and monitoring of the adolescent, effective behavior management, and parental investment in a school. And how do the parents accomplish this? By the role play, by repeated practicing the skills directly with the adolescent, with the family, alone with their own families or with the facilitator present. The facilitator facilitates the process, but the parent is the one that is in charge. And of course, parents are giving full credit for the participation and the validating feedback and positive reinforcement at the end of each task. Here, we're going to see how parents, role play a skill. Okay, so, in that role play, they have fun, but they also learn some skills, and they put themselves in the adolescent shoes, and that facilitates some of that interaction. So when they learn to do this in the session, the parent will transfer the skill to the child during the family visits and also during the homework activities. And this is accomplished by enacting a skill with the adolescent and family members. For example, in this case, communication or negotiation, which is, a foreign idea to some parents. They don't know how to negotiate with adolescents. They feel like, especially for Hispanic parents, that this is not acceptable. And, also parents rehearse what they learn in the group with their own families. Let's see another short clip.
relacionado un momento de que ellos solamente fuesen de ellos. Un tipo de cosa de que ellos solamente van a experimentar una otra persona. ¿Cuál es tu expectativa respecto a lo que ustedes están hablando con Roberto? ¿Qué es lo que tú quisieras? ¿Qué es lo que tú quisieras ver?
Pero como lo de ahora, de esperar un poco, esperar a tener una edad de mayor madurez, comience a tener una relación sexual legal, y en el caso, cuando pueda hacer siempre pensar en la consecuencia, usar la conexión mejor, más absoluta para él.
So, tu expectativa entonces es que prolongue lo más que pueda y que una vez que él esté decidido a tener una relación sexual, entonces lo haga sabiendo proteger él y a la otra persona. ¿Qué te puede decir a tu mami? ¿Cuáles son tus propias expectativas? Bueno, yo sí que tengo propias expectativas porque sí, es verdad que cuando tú lo vas a hacer, igualmente tú estás siendo forzado, no sabes, limitado a ese tipo de cosas y solamente estás forzado a personas que no bien pienso de ti. Y si eso a veces sí te dirige a problemas y a muchas cosas, pero yo creo de que si tú realmente, si tú y tu relación a veces con Antonio es muy buena y tú quieres mucho a esa persona y tienes una conexión con esa persona, usted tiene que, ustedes saben cómo sucede.
So, I like this clip for many reasons, because the mother is able to have this conversation with her son about an important topic, which is sex. And I remember this mother in particular at the beginning of the program, she was totally reluctant to talk about this subject. She even said, I think if I approach this subject, I'm opening the channels for you to have sex. And, throughout the whole intervention, and especially at the end, this is one of the last family visits, she was able to have this conversation in a way that showed respect, and she also heard what he needed to say, things that she probably had no idea that he was feeling that way about, sexual relations in that form. And also, they communicated in a very nice manner their expectations and, what might be expecting from him long term. Any questions before we continue with some of the strategies?
Yes, we have one. One attendee would like to know if what funding sources are available for groups interested in participating. She says that she did a little bit of research and it looked like the cost of training was substantial and that might make it difficult to train staff.
Well, everything is in the website. Of course, they can always call us and we can discuss this further about, the training, what they will receive, what the training entails. Everything is in the website, but they can, feel free to email us at the end of this presentation. You will have our email, so you can email us and we can discuss further if it does something that interests, a particular agency or organization.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So, one of the other techniques that facilitators learn is the restructuring. And here the facilitator actively changes existing maladaptive interactions to a new one, to a more positive set of interactions in the microsystem, meaning parent and adolescent relationship. On the mesosystem, the relationship the parents have with the schools, with the peer world. So together, these intervention strategies are intended to have a cascading effect, building skills in parent and youth, and transforming the parents into the agents of change in their own families, to take the leadership in their own families. These are our sessions, the intervention outline. You know, we start with family visit. We have, like we said before, 12 sessions together, and 8 of those are group format, and we have 4 family visits throughout the intervention where the parents can learn all the skills that they practice. They also have an opportunity to practice that in their own families. So, you know, I'm going to show you a collage video or some of the participants' experiences in the intervention. Oh, hold on, the collage, hold on. I guess you only needed to. Okay, here it comes.
Ha sido bien agradable la que ustedes han montado, escuchar las experiencias que tienen cada uno con sus hijos, como decía ahorita Sergio, de que es bien difícil no darse cuenta, también no nos damos cuenta del problema que tienen nuestros hijos, pero lo de nosotros no nos damos cuenta, pero cuando se habla, miramos que el hijo también puede ir ahí mismo y eso ha servido para ponerle como un estado, como decir, poder ya decirle cómo me siento, poder abordarlo de otra manera. Me he dado cuenta que mi hijo, yo siempre creía que mi hijo era yo. Sabes que yo no puedo decir que me hace regalo, y me doy cuenta que todos tenemos yo pero que gracias a Dios he aprendido muchísimo de ustedes y de cada uno del programa, con la ayuda de ustedes. Pues ha habido más comunicación con la niña, yo he visto resultados. Yo le doy la gracia también por ustedes, porque yo antes yo vi que hacía las cosas y yo le decía a él que cuando fuéramos en el grupo no hiciera preguntas porque a mí me daba pena contestar. Que no o sea, ahora ya se comunicar con niñas en su grupo, pues para donde me digan hoy, primero no me daba pena, era bien, y ahora no, ahora como que me he abierto más, gracias a eso. Y ahí, a mí me pasa que yo me animo a hablar de temas que antes no me dejaba hablar con eso. Y quizás con Yara, que tiene 17 años, no lo hablé y ahora lo hablo. En cambio con Sergio, que cumplió 14, lo puedo hablar más abiertamente y logré hablarlo con él, ya que con Yara no. Pero a mí me agradaría más que todo, me haría más feliz es la comunicación de ellos con él. Y ahora yo veo que se ha motivado bastante, tiene como 12 años.
Okay, so you have an idea of, you know, the experiences that parents are discussing here. And like the other question that we have, here are our emails. So my email, that person can email me regarding the training cost, and we can discuss it further. Are there any other questions?
No, not at this time. Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you all for participating.
And thank you for being with us. We'll just launch a quick poll, just 1 second of your time, if you can hang in there with us. We'd like to know if the information was well presented.
Okay, sure.
And also, if this information will be helpful in your work. And one last question, if you would like to learn more about what was presented today. Thank you everyone for joining us today. If you like what you heard and you want to share this with your colleagues, please visit our website in the next couple of weeks and you'll find a recorded version of today's webinar there at advancingevp.org. And join us next month for another webinar. We'll have details out on that soon. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you again, Maria and Willie, for being with us.
You're very welcome. A pleasure from all of us.